channel, Luminousz Ztarr. If this is your first time visiting, welcome. To my current stars, my subscribers, thank you so much for your subscription, and thank you for the support that you guys give me to keep this channel going. Thank you so much. I hope you guys are doing well wherever you are. And this video is going to be really about me talking about, really putting a question out there. Like, okay, what are we really dealing with here when we are dealing with a person who has a cluster B personality and a person who, under that umbrella of a cluster B personality, is a narcissist? Okay, I want to really talk about, basically put the question out there. What are we really dealing with here? This is one of the critical questions that I had shared in another video that I did. What are you really dealing with? Who are you really dealing with when you're dealing with a person that you have a toxic relationship with? Some people who are truly narcissists, and actually they can easily be diagnosed as being a narcissist, they sometimes get up under the radar in their midst. They're like stealth up under the radar. They're not easily detected. So they tend to kind of slip through, you know, and it's really sad because some people end up suffering. What are we really dealing with? Because some of those individuals are not narcissists. They may have a cluster B personality. Like, okay, what are we really dealing with when dealing with people who we have toxic relationships with, who seem to, okay, you know, act like a narcissist, but they may not be. So this is what this video is about today. This video is not my trying to diagnose anyone. I am not a licensed professional, and I just want to go ahead and suggest that if you have a support base right now that does consist of a professional, kudos to you and my thumbs up to you, because I say that when we're dealing with people who are really nasty towards us, and we have a history of that, part of the support base, my opinion is you're going to need someone who is really an expert on this from the professional side. However, there are many of us, such as myself, who are experts on this subject, however, from the personal side, because we've had some, you know, a lot of experiences with this. Some of us, it goes back to our childhood. But yeah, you know I can certainly say I have some experiences with this particular topic from a personal side. Now, I do have a strong support base right now, and I'm very proud to say that I am not trying to tackle you know, this issue alone. One of the issues is having a history of having toxic relationships with people who behave abusively. I am not trying to tackle this alone. Some of those results have been, you know, from those particular experiences, have been trauma. And again, this is not something to deal with alone. I don't suggest isolation. I don't suggest self-medication. I'm against that, actually. And at the same time, I am not judging, because I have gone down some dark roads myself in order to deal with this type of thing. So I am certainly the last person to judge. But okay, let's jump right into it. And again, basically putting that question out there. What are we really dealing with when we deal with someone who can easily be seen as a narcissist, even though they might quite, you know, by the classic textbook, you know, or the professional side, they, you know, may not be a narcissist. We may be dealing with something else. And I'm going to go ahead and share with you guys in this video. This video is not going to be me really giving a lot of points and then the examples and then the tools, even though I love, you guys know me, who have been with me for a while, you know me to give the videos in that type of style. And I really appreciate you guys giving me comments. The little country part of me just came out there, y'all. Yes, I am a country girl. But anyway, yeah, I appreciate y'all, okay? I appreciate you all giving me positive feedback, comments. Some of the comments don't quite agree with my viewpoints, but I absolutely love that because I like a challenge. And this is something that I am open to, is looking at different or various perspectives on a particular topic. I enjoy that. I don't take, some of the comments, I really, that don't agree with me, I don't take those personally. Anyway, keep the comments coming, and the questions, again, send them to my email address. Okay? So, when we're dealing with a person who seems to be or have a pattern, or the pathology is, okay, they're just treating everybody like crap. However, you and I can tend to feel like that we're being pinpointed. However, some people who have a cluster B personality, they do tend to sometimes scapegoat people. Now, in the cases of a narcissistic parent, I will say that they tend to pick one child. They can have 10 children, but they tend to pick one child to scapegoat, unfortunately, okay, for narcissistic supply. I want to say that my opinion is that this is a spiritual, not just a psychological issue, it's a spiritual issue. It's not just an emotional issue or a psychological issue or maybe even a mental issue. I think it's a spiritual issue. I actually am leaning strongest towards that. I do think the other aspects of it, emotional, spiritual is, I think, the number one. But what comes up under that, in my opinion, is psychological, emotional, and possibly even mental. So I think that we're dealing with, this is my opinion, I think we're dealing with someone who is spiritually conflicted to the 100th degree. They decided to disconnect from their higher self, which is their consciousness. There may have been a particular experience that this individual had. I'm speaking of the person with the cluster B personality. They had a particular experiences at some point in their life. Let's just go ahead and say in their childhood. And for a survival, just to survive, the survival mechanism was to disconnect from his or her higher self, their consciousness, not just in the mind, but in the core, in the spirit. They disconnected because the consciousness is, it's not in the brain only. We think so, but it's not. It's just not the functioning of the brain. That's not quite what consciousness is. Well, not totally. Consciousness also gets right into our essence, our core, our center. So when you have a person who disconnects from that, then yeah, you have a mess. You have someone who possibly is using that as a survival mechanism. Like it's fight or flight. So they decided that this person who has a cluster B personality, who was having a particular horrific experiences, maybe even traumatic experiences, their survival mechanism, they went into flight. Okay, maybe they were little children and they were too small to actually fight the monster that was causing them the pain. So they took flight. They took flight in here and in here. When I'm pointing to the brain and I'm pointing to the heart, because this is both places the consciousness is there. This is part of our essence. This is part of our center. This is part of our core. This is just all aspects of us, every aspect of us. So when I point here and here, this is where the so-called narcissists, when they were small, when they were children, they, as a survival mechanism, they decided to take flight because they really couldn't fight the person that was causing them the trauma or the pain. Okay, so they, as a survival mechanism, they decided to take flight. So when they disconnected from themselves, this is something, this, in my opinion, this is where the birthing of the narcissism took place. Because they disconnected from their higher self. They took flight and they kept doing that over and over. This particular individual who we may have been dealing with, or several individuals that we have been dealing with, that we, we have labeled, okay, I have labeled as a narcissist. They have a cluster B personality, but they may not be a narcissist. Okay, and even some of them who are narcissists. The bottom line is this: we have dealt with people in toxic relationships who have the traits of a narcissist. Classic textbook as a narcissist. All right. However, I want to just, again, I'm just putting that question out there. Just, this video is sort of my rant / just putting a question out there. So, because I have often wondered that, okay, what makes this person, like that? Why do they behave that way? Whereas they seem to not care about anyone else. And it's very clear that they're hurting. They have a wound, or they have several things within them that they're not addressing. And they seem to be projecting that not only onto me, but everybody else that they seem to deal with. Now, when they put on that game face and smile and act all pleasant and nice, I know that is just that, a part of the game. They're doing that to set up the trap to capture their prey. All right? They're looking for a source of supply. It could be a potential new source of supply. So they'll put the game face on, they'll act all nice and, pleasant, until the mask comes off after they have entrapped or ensnared the, the prey or the target. So I just want to, again, I'm kind of ranting and also just putting the question out there, food for thought, because it's like, I have wondered plenty of times, like when dealing with those type of people in some of my past toxic relationships, like, wow, they don't have any remorse. They do very harmful things, not only to themselves. In other words, they're self-destructive, but they seem to want to spread the destruction, so to speak, and they seem to, behave like that really gives them a thrill to do so. That really energizes them, and that seems to feed something within them that helps them to continue to have a false self to present to the world. It's like they're feeding that monster within themselves that was, born a long time ago. Whatever happened to them, it had to start somewhere. It had to originate somewhere. I don't think that people are born narcissists, not hardcore, full-blown narcissists. I do think that we all have narcissistic tendencies. I just don't think that anyone is born a full-blown narcissist. Some people will debate that. I just don't believe that. So guys, I'm just kind of putting that out there, and I'm looking forward to your comments and your questions. Send them all to my email. I'm really looking forward to that, because I have often wondered, what are we really dealing with when we're dealing with a person like that who can easily be labeled as a narcissist? We have these toxic relationships with them. Are we dealing with someone who is just mentally ill? Personally, I don't think so. I think we're dealing with someone who is chronically, spiritually conflicted. That's my opinion. This is someone who disconnected from his or herself a long time ago as a survival mechanism. They took flight, and they continued to take flight over and over and over and over. And they look up and they're 40 years old, they're 50 years old, and they're still taking flight, to deal with things that a lot of us, we have to deal with in life. For example, you have someone who can easily be labeled as a narcissist, and they have a relationship with you or I, and it's like, instead of dealing with the basic conflicts that may come up in any relationship, even the best of relationships, conflicts will occur because you have different personalities, you have different energies and spirits that come together in a particular unit, okay, to connect, to grow together. However, when you're dealing with someone with a cluster B personality, that link, there's a weak link, and it's the narcissist that occurs within that unit. So there's the weakest link seems to be the cluster B personality, because they interrupt that pattern. Okay, they bust that up, because the basic conflicts that happen in the best of relationships, the way that cluster B personality tends to deal with it is very destructive, very toxic, and even unhealthy. So it tends to put a lot of strain on a relationship that's basically a very good relationship. So that's my example about how they tend to take, the cluster B personality tends to take flight just by dealing with conflict. Their coping skills, their coping mechanisms seem to be very toxic and poor. Such as, again, you know, you guys may disagree about something, but they're ready to go upside your head, or they threatened to go upside your head. They threaten to leave the relationship. They threaten to speak evil against you, and some of them actually character assassinate. What kind of way is that to deal with the fact that you disagree about the color of the curtain to put up in the living room? Seriously? You're going to do all that because we don't agree on the color of what the curtains should be to go into the living room? I say green and you say black. You know, just again, guys, an example. But that cluster B personality, that very disagreement threatens their false self. The fact that they have taken flight over and over, that takes on a personality in and of itself. That flight experience that the person has takes on it's like, okay, so every time the so-called narcissist or the cluster B personality you know, takes flight, that's when that false self is being personified, is being presented to the world, because they're very guarded. Cluster B personality can be very guarded. Like, okay, you know, I'm just scoping you out to see how I can use you and abuse you. I'm not interested in connecting with you, but I will pretend like I like you. I will pretend like I love you. I will pretend like I care, just to get the source of supply from you. I want the supply, not you. At the same time, I am so dependent on you. See, this is how the cluster B personality or so-called narcissists tend to behave. That personification of the flight, you know, taking flight, disconnected from the self, is personified. So when we see them, you know, being self-destructive, I think this is what we're really looking at. We're really looking at a person who is spiritually conflicted at a chronic level, disconnected from their higher self. That part of all of us who has the potential, to grow and get to a higher level of state of consciousness. When a person disconnects from that part of themselves, their growth is seriously retarded. They're not going to grow because they are in a state of resistance from growing. They just want the source of supply. They just want to feed the monster, so to speak. That's it. You know, and this is why sometimes some cluster B personalities seemingly are addicted, yes, obsessed, addicted to mistreating others, behaving abusively, not only to themselves, but others. So they're very self-destructive. So they are addicted to that interaction. They're very addicted and obsessed with it. This is all they're focused on, because that of a predator is their nature, right? So they're always on the prowl. Seemingly from the time that they close their eyes, they may even dream about how to get new sources of supply. I wouldn't be shocked. But anyway, it's like the cluster B personality, they're constantly on the prowl. It's like they are obsessed with the addiction of the interaction with other people, of getting the source of supply. I hope that makes sense. It's like they're not only obsessed, but they're addicted as well. So the taking of the flight that they probably did when they were little, they just continue on with that, because again, it's a survival mechanism, it's a coping skill that they learned very early on, and they stuck with it because it seemed to work for them. So whenever someone threatens their false self, when his or her false self is threatened, it's time to take flight or fight. Okay, so that survival mechanism tends to go on consistently and constantly. So there you have the obsession, the addiction, you know, the self-destruction. To me, all of these things reflect a person who is chronically spiritually conflicted. It's not just psychological. I think we're going way past that here. It's not just emotional. You know, it's not just mental. I really think that what we're really dealing with is a person who is so chronically spiritually conflicted, they have decided a long time ago they're going to remain in resistance of the fact that they're wounded and how they have been wounded. They don't want to deal with it. Something happened and they don't want to deal. So they continue to project that onto others. This is why most of the time when we're dealing with narcissists or cluster B personality, they like to keep us focused on our past. That is very painful because they soak that energy up. Whenever we are feeling anger, when we're feeling sadness, you know, this is energy that is being signaled out. Because we are comprised of energy, we're always vibrating. We're always sending out a signal. So narcissists, since they are predators by nature, this is their choice, the choice they made a long time ago to disconnect from their higher self, leaving their animalistic lower primal self. This is what they present to the world. They're obsessed with feeding that monster, if you will. You know, that's the animalistic primal nature is what they continue to feed. That's the monster that narcissists continue to feed obsessively. You ever notice why narcissists, when they bring up your past, it's not anything that's necessarily happy, a happy occasion? You know, there's a reason for that. Because, again, narcissists, they have a lot of pain in their past. In other words, there's whatever that was that had them take flight, whereas they decided to take, again, they made the choice. They decided to take flight. It worked for them. So that was in their subconscious mind. Oh, this works. So I'm gonna stick with that. So whenever I deal with people, right, I'm just gonna go ahead and take flight. I'm gonna take flight, or I'm gonna fight dirty, right? I'm going to go ahead and continue to feed that monster. The false self. That's the so-called monster. That's the addiction that has to be fed. So, you know, again, I really think that this is what we're dealing with, guys. Somebody who has disconnected from their higher self and they are focused on their lower animalistic, basic, you know, their primal, basic animalistic nature. That's what they're zeroed in on. That's what they're focused on. That's where the false self lives and breathes. Okay. This is what I think. This is what we're dealing with. So I just want to kind of put that out there. And again, yeah, that's my rant. You know, I don't do a whole lot of videos on ranting, but this is my rant. This is my rant. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. All right, you guys take care. Mwah.